Good day, YouTube. Today's topic, I want to talk about something that we probably do every day, which is dealing with people. Some of you may like to deal with people, some of you would rather not deal with people, but that's something that I feel is very important. And like money will also be an important part of our lives all the time, or at least weekly, if not daily. So let's talk about what I like to do is I like to observe people and see what I like about them, what I don't like, their leadership abilities, and I'm going to learn from these people. So I'm going to see what I can take from them to learn, both positive and negative. The positive I'm going to use. The negative I'm going to try to avoid and not use. So that's what I want to talk about today. This could be in your personal relationship or your professional relationship or at school, depending on what it is that you are doing in your lifestyle. So what about making adjustments? You have to make adjustments. At least I have made adjustments in the way I lead, the way I interact with people, my teammates at work, whether it's military or civilian, it doesn't matter as long as, the people that we work with, how do we deal with them? And I came across an article online today that I'm going to share with you. I'm also going to put the link at the bottom of this video for you to share, for you to review it if you'd like to. It's a great article that I read, and I'll talk about that in just a moment. So what about your supervisor? What is it that you like about him or her? What is it that he or she does well or doesn't do well that stands out? I guarantee you I asked that question, and I'm sure you can think of something that he or she does that either makes you proud or that makes you want to go the other way because it's not a good thing to do. Another form of communication that we deal with when we deal with people, nowadays it's social media. And I'll give you several examples. The first one is my daughter, who's 18, sent me a text today. And this was the second time she did this. She said, hey, what about blah, 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 whatever it was that she was talking on that. And I said, hey, you know what? I don't talk to you that way. So, don't talk to me that way. I'm not your little buddy. Now, of course, I'm being a little, joking when I say this to her. But at the same time, she called me immediately and said, hey, Dad, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to be disrespectful. I said, you know what? You're not a disrespectful young girl. So I understand, but it's something that I don't even use with people. It's like, hey, come over here. What do you think about this? It's not my style. And I guarantee you, she's only done that twice, and this is the second time today in a week. She explained herself. I said, hey, we're good to go. Just, it's something that I don't like. It's not that big of a deal. And I said, do me a favor. She goes, what? We're talking on the phone. I said, can you let it go? Because she's going out to a dinner right now with her mom, my wife, since I'm staying away from home for 2 nights. As you know, I stay away from my home 2 nights every week because it's 76 miles each way. I have a roommate. This is his house. So she said, yes, I can let it go. I said, do me a favor, just let it go and have a good dinner. And that's just communication. But social media, it's a new way that the youngsters communicate these days, whether it's text, whether it's Instagram, whether it's Facebook, whether it's whatever. So one of the things that I like to tell my daughter, going back to that example, is make sure you call home once you're away from home at school, or you send a letter and surprise that special person in your life, whether it's your grandma, your mother, your father, your brother, whoever it is. Writing letters was a form of communication that unfortunately a lot of people don't do. So it's just, something to think about. Next thing is feedback. When we deal with people, I think it's important that we provide feedback and that we also request feedback. I was speaking with an individual that I supervised just a few months ago, maybe 3 months ago. And he said, hey, sir, can I give you some feedback? I said, absolutely. We're walking outside from one building back to where we work. And he said, you tend to ask people questions, of course, that you want an answer. But I've noticed that often, or a few times at least, they've given you that information and it's just like you weren't listening. And you know what? He's right. So I told him, I said, hey, thank you first of all for that feedback because that's important for me to consider. I had heard that before. My wife has said something like that. So it's something that I've been working on in focusing on that conversation. When you're in a communication or when you are speaking with someone, whether it's at home or at work or at school, and you ask questions, the best type of questions you can ask are open-ended questions. Because here's an example of a closed question, which is, do you like food? The answer is either going to be yes or no. Whereas an open-ended question is, what type of food do you like? That gives that other person the ability to come back to you and say, what they like, and then next thing you know, it's just a conversation. Why do you like that food, and so forth. When I deal with people, I notice things that are similar to myself and differences. That's just something that I've done because I like to observe people. And I have to remember that everybody is different. You're different than me, and I'm different than you, but we also have some similarities. That doesn't mean that we're going to do everything the same way. I don't do anything the same way, not even with my wife. We have our differences as well. That's just normal. Observations is something that I like to do. I've talked about that briefly. I observe people, and I'm sure people observe me as well. What I want to talk about now in dealing with people is an article that I read today. It's very short, but it's good. It's called 10 Tips for Dealing with Everyday People at Work. But I'm going to take it a step further and say whether it's at work or whether it's at home. It's by Susan Heathfield, and she is an HR expert. My background is HR, human resources, which is, I'm a personnel guy. I work human resources, my civilian job in the past. So for me, HR is something that I love to do, and I love to interact with people. So 10 tips. The first one is demonstrate respect. And that's something that I like to say is you respect people and you expect respect from others as well. It doesn't matter if you're 18, 20, or 50 or older than that. It's just about respect. Trust and be trustworthy. So that's a great lesson right there. These are 10 tips for effective communication or dealing with people. Provide feedback. I talked about that. But it has to have feedback according to this article that has an impact. I have many examples for these examples here that I'm going to talk about, but I can't talk about all of them. And the next one is receive feedback with grace and dignity. An example I already gave, which is an individual that I supervise. I love the fact that he felt comfortable speaking to me and giving me some feedback. I need to hear that as well, just like we have to give feedback. The next one's great. Show appreciation. I love that one. It's show appreciation for the moment, for the conversation, for the team, for the effort, for whatever it is that we are doing. Build alliances is the next one. That's something that I like to do as well. At work, I know who my go-to people are, and I'm going to appreciate the help that they do for me, that whatever it is that they may do for me or teach me how to do something or explain something. Play well with others. Now, I like that one as well. I like to play well with others, but we're not always going to play well with others, whether it's our husband, wife, boyfriend, girlfriend, or our teammates at work. It happens. It's called living in life, that we're going to have disagreements. Overcome your fear of confrontation and conflict. Very important. I am an individual that's pretty easygoing for the most part. I don't walk away from conflict. I'm not a confrontational person in the past, but now it's a little bit different. Not that I'm going to confront people and start arguing or fighting. It's not about that. It's just that I'm going to speak my mind consistently, whether I agree with you or disagree with you, but I'm going to do it with tact, and I'm going to be professional. And one of the things that I like to do is I like to have silly jokes. The people that really know me are going to say, hey, this guy Hugo, he's a good guy, but his mentality is like a 15-year-old boy as far as jokes and sense of humor. But it's all appropriate. At my age, I'm not going to make inappropriate jokes because I've learned not to do that. So overcome your fear of confrontation and conflict. And that goes for personal relationships as well. Ensure that you speak whatever's on your mind. Like I've said before, nobody reads minds. And it's okay for my daughter to say, hey, Dad, who's 18, or my son who's in his 20s, to say, hey, Dad, what you did was inappropriate, or I didn't like that, and that's how come I need to bring it up to your attention. And I would appreciate that as well. Hold a difficult conversation, because it's easy to talk about celebrations. You've probably heard me say that in the past, but hold a difficult conversation, a hot topic, or a difficult topic. Consciously create team norms. I read more into that because I wasn't sure what that article was talking about, but that could be in a meeting, everybody has the right to say something, to speak their mind. I think that's very important. Communication or dealing with people goes sideways. It goes from the top to the bottom. And I'm going to end with this. I was in a conference just last week, very busy week. and they were all colonels, lieutenant colonels, and a few generals. And I was an action officer for a development team, which was a great experience. But I got to see how these leaders worked, how they communicated, how they dealt with each other. None of these people, for the most part, knew each other, but they were there for the mission for the week. They knew what to do. They communicated. My job as an action officer was to say, hey, sir and ma'am, there is a 2-point difference as far as a disagreement on how you scored this individual. So if you can please work that out, because if it's beyond 1.5 points or 2 points, if it's 2 points or more, they have to clear the air and come to an agreement and rescore that person. So there's a minimum of 1.5 point difference. That's acceptable, whereas 2 points is not acceptable. So I've learned a lot. I'm learning constantly. The reason I make these videos is just because I like to share my journey and hopefully help you or answer questions and kind of show you what I get to do in this blessed life that I've been able to do with the Air Force. That's the topic today. Do you like to deal with people? Hopefully the answer is yes. But if you don't, that's okay, as long as you continue to learn and realize that you are going to have to deal with people, whether it's at work or whether it's at home. Have a great day. Take care.